So we're back, and as long as we still have this area is still wet, I'll go back over again about lifting. Since this is all about controlling the medium today, let's see what happens when we take a dry brush to this and lift some of that color up and out. See, I can remove some of that color with a dry brush. If you have got way too much pigment and you want to control it, that's one really good way to control it. Now, as that, if that's still way too much for you, you can always go back in with more water, put a little bit of water on, kind of scrub it out that way. You can scrub and you can lift, you can come back in with the dry brush, pick up more. And it's almost like just erasing what you had down. See, we're getting rid of it. So you have a lot of control that you don't realize. A lot of times in watercolor it can get really frustrating. You put stuff down and it doesn't do what you want it to do. It blooms out and makes these weird shapes that you didn't want there. This is a way you can come back in and control it. Best when it's still wet. If you wait for it to dry, yeah, you can still go into some degree over and over without, hopefully overdoing your paper. You can gently come in and take more color out, but it's going to come out a lot easier before it sets and becomes more permanent. And then this always depends on what pigments you're using, what brand, how it's reacting to your paper. So these are all things to get used to as you practice, as you keep playing with it just to see what you can do. You're going to get a feel for your own materials. You're going to find ways to work with it. So even if your colors maybe aren't, like the best, but they're pretty good ones, they're student grade, they're not handling as well as you would like, you can still get a feel for it. Always invest in better paper because that's going to lift better. When you're going with cheaper paper, you might not be able to lift out color at all. So nice paper, Arches is still rated the best. This one I'm using is a cheaper one, but it's still a really good one. I think it's fluid. It's a nice one. But some of the other ones, you might struggle with. So honestly, just get to know your own materials. And if you are having problems, paper might be your issue. So splurge a little bit, cut it down a big sheet into a lot of squares, and make it work. Okay, so let's see. The other thing with controlling medium is what we talked about when we did the graded wash. So a lot of times when you're shading an area, you're going to want shades of that color. You're going to want it to get from lighter to darker. And we kind of had that going in the way we lifted here, but you can also have that going in the way you put down your color. Here, let's go with red since I haven't used this red yet. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to mix an area of it. Okay, so if I'm going to put down some color, and I want to see if I can pull it out. So pulling out the color is going to be one way to get sort of a gradated, darker on top to lighter on bottom. I'm going to keep pulling it down. And it's going to get lighter as I mix water in with it. I can let it pool too. That's one of the things about having something small like this. I can move it around and let gravity take control. I can see the color going, and I can see it getting lighter as it goes down, and then sometimes not. You can see it just sort of puddling up there. I can add more water here at the bottom, put water back in, see what it's doing. It's interesting the way it's playing there. You see the little river coming down? It's always going to go down to the wet spot, right? Just like any stream or river. Watercolor's the same. If you want to control it, well, you can do paper towel, of course. Blot it quickly if it's something that you definitely didn't want to happen. If it's something you want to play with a little bit, you can get that dry brush going. Pick up what you don't want. I think the dry brush is just a whole lot more control without losing your color. Once you get the paper towel on there, sometimes like you're taking off everything you just put down. So I'll move it a little bit. So see, I'm getting this gradation of color going down. And it's just a fun thing to practice that with different colors and see what you can do. And now that I have that wet area of color, pinkish red, I can definitely go in and charge it with more color. I'm getting a little bit more color on my brush. I can just drop that right in while it's wet and let that do its work. The other thing would be if I wanted to charge it with a different color like we did in the other one, just to see what that will do if I put in, let's see, a little bit of the blue. How about? I'll do that at the bottom and see what we can do with it and watch it travel. So within my little area that I've painted, since there's dry paper all around, I don't run the risk too much of going out of an area, right? I can keep in this one area. It's when I have on all wet paper that I have less control. So if you are doing something with lots of different things in it, leaves or whatever, flower petals, it's a good practice just to do an area at a time and keep everything around it dry, and then go into the next area next to it and next to it. So those are things we will be doing as we move along. And I'm gonna see what I can do with this mix that we have going now. It's kind of pretty. Very, I'll take my dry brush, it's dry, and see if I can control a little bit. I can drag it down, right? I see that hard edge forming there that I may or may not want. I kind of like it actually, but I've got the soft edge here. But just so you know the differences, and that you know that you can go in and fix those or control those. When I go in with some water around on the outside, I can soften it, but sometimes that ends up making you have a bigger area than you intended. But I can soften that edge if I want. I can scrub it out a little bit with the tip of my brush. I can come back in with the dry brush and pick up and soften. So there's lots you can do to control your edges. Okay.